This is the Petare neighborhood. Many say that this barrio is one of the most dangerous places on earth. About 30 people are killed here, and that's on a good day. On a bad day, more than 100. So on average, about one person every 20 minutes. From here, we control the whole territory. Today, we're walking in the slums where people live on $4 to $5 a month.
This is a typical flat here in the barrios. The fridge is predictably empty.
And in the palaces with gold chandeliers.
This is the Bolivar room in the presidential palace. This is the sword that Nicolas Maduro received from Vladimir Putin.
What's life like in a country where everyone has a gun and people are even buried with their guns? What sells in the black market, at night and during the daytime? What do you guys do here? You're trading currencies, aren't you? Hey, nah, man. How people are robbed here.
So he comes up, and it's, everything's happening quickly. I hear a ch-ch-ch. And the gun's already, here.
And how much is human life worth?
1 bullet.
How gangs kidnap people.
It's become very difficult to find people here who have any money.
And the government holds journalists.
Lights go out, and in complete darkness, a group of agents enter and forcefully take away my backpack.
We're in the presidential palace. They've taken all our things, and they're holding us here.
So when you hear next that it's dangerous in the barrios, well, think about that. How the countrywide famine forced people to scavenge for food on rubbish dump. This profile of butt curve is so distinctly Venezuelan, and what incompetence of unbelievable proportions looks like. How the hell is this even possible? They didn't know. They invited us to the interview to take us to the palace, and then they tell us that the president's out of town. Unbelievable, just unbelievable incompetence. This is Venezuela, the most oil-rich country in the world, and also one of its most dangerous. This is its most dangerous city, the capital, Caracas. And the most dangerous places in Caracas, the barrios, Las Minas, La Vega, Katia, 23 de Enero, and of course, Petare, the black hole of the whole Latin America. Today, we're walking here. Let's go. When I finished visiting Venezuela a few years back, the first thing I was told was never to film out of the window. You get to the junction or get stuck in traffic, and bikers would drive up to your car, take out a gun, and rob you of everything you have, even your rings. Look at this policeman patrolling the city, gun in his hand. The roads here are the most dangerous places of all. This is what you should never do in Caracas. Stop and sit in your car. In the blink of an eye, you'll get surrounded. Guys with guns will drag you out and take your car. This woman slowed down at a turn and immediately got into trouble. Guys sprang out of their car and tried to force the doors open. Good thing she reacted quickly and took off. Well, bummer, they'd try the next one.
I did get robbed once. I was leaving the bank with my money. I see this guy, he's standing there watching me. Just outside the bank, and there was a small cafe place there. I get there, and he just takes off, takes out the gun. He had a Glock, I think. Same as the cops here. He cocks it and points it right at my face.
Right there in the cafe?
Yeah, right there, man.
Look at this. The whole neighborhood's cleaning out this shop. The eldest swipe the alcohol and cigarettes. The youngest take the sweets. The teacher, the big guy in yellow, gets busy with the till. Gets a bit enthusiastic and takes the receipt printer too.
So he comes up and it's like, everything's happening so quickly. I hear ch-ch, and his gun's already, it's like here. So I just managed to grab it and push it up. And the girl next to me starts screaming like crazy. I'm pregnant, please don't shoot, please. And so on. And just like for 3 seconds, I'm distracted and he steps back, gun at the ready again. So he takes the bag with the money. And I'm standing there shaking, adrenaline rush, you know what I mean? And he walks out of the cafe. Outside his mates waiting for him on a bike. I run out of the cafe, and like 60 feet away, and that's where the cops were standing. And they did nothing! Nothing!
Look at this. A woman snacking on the bus, and then the robbery begins. No one even screams. The woman casually picks another snack and takes out her purse and her phone. And look, the robber quickly takes out the money and gives the purse back. Why bother with extra stuff, huh? And the woman just gets on eating her snacks. So chilled. So what do you do to not get robbed?
Just gotta get them first a couple of times. They're skittish, you know? Just used to robbing people who just do what they tell them meekly. Nobody's fighting them. I had them once even, do this and like, all you've got now, give it to us. And I was like, the fuck's that? You want to see what I've got? I'll show you what I've got, you dumb fuck. God, I'm getting got one right in the kisser and just flew right out of there.
Wow, man, everyone says you're supposed to just do whatever they tell you.
Yeah, well, that's right for them. But I came here in 95, after 92, 93, nothing here scares me too much. Volgograd's been scarier sometimes.
Sasha came to Venezuela from 1990s Russia, from our gangs and violence to Venezuelan relative peace and quiet.
Some robbers actually dress up like policemen.
Like this, in the middle of the day, 2 policemen stop by a shop.
Hey man, what's up? Yeah, okay, turn around. Nice and easy, facing the wall. What's in the pockets? Nothing? Wait, that's a nice phone you got. Let me help you out with that. Hey dude, you need a phone? Here, a gift for your lady. No? Okay, I'll just keep it then. You there, stay safe now. Hey, what the hell was that?
Most of the barrios are in the mountains, so the roads here are like staircases going up and down. This neighborhood here is so dangerous that even Jesus Christ is carrying a rifle. The caption reads, "Viviremos, we'll live." The other one next to the AK-wielding Virgin Mary is "Venceremos, we'll win." The barrio is a relatively recent phenomenon. This was Caracas in the 1960s. No slums anywhere, not in the city center nor in the suburbs. In the 80s and 90s, nearby villagers started to relocate to the sparsely populated mountain slopes, where the land was really cheap. But everything changed at the turn of the century, when the first socialist president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, started granting the poor land all over the city, even in rich neighborhoods, including around his own Miraflores Palace. This is the residence of the president, the stairs he takes every morning. And here's the funny thing. What kind of view do you think he enjoys from up there? Exactly! It's the barrios and other slums. They're everywhere here. Here's another poor block, close by the palace, almost like a small mini barrio of sorts. The poor from the villages started flocking to Caracas en masse, and so the slums grew larger and larger to finally dominate the cityscape, covering, at present, as much as 80% of the capital. Guys, this one might be one of the weirdest barrios in Caracas. It's a 25-story block of flats. Look, even has a helipad on top of it. It was never finished, but people still decided to move in anyways. Look, some have tried to set up walls. Unbelievable conditions. Yeah, well, what else are you gonna do? Ugh. It's called the Tower of David, and it even had a cameo in the US-produced Homeland TV series. The main hero had to lie low for a while, and while hiding here, he saw the everyday lives of the inhabitants. But of course, most barrios look like this. Different colored, rambling brick hovels, clamoring one over another. They're usually built like a Napoleon cake, layer by layer, new hovels built right on top of the old ones. This is what the Barrio Architecture looks like. They first build one story, then they add another one on top of it, some even add a third, and a different family lives on each floor. There are no conventional numbers or mailboxes here. A conventional digital map is useless, so guys, look at these analog barrio maps. How many of these have you seen before? To keep tabs on who lives where, the authorities have to make these cardboard barrio mock-ups.
We record who lives where, what their family's like, whether they receive help from the revolutionary government, whether it's their place or not, whether they have any troubles, how well they're doing. Here we have all the information on every district. So we, the revolutionaries, always know where we're needed. It's very important to us.
The revolutionaries, by the way, is how the Venezuelan government call themselves. But even they don't stick their necks out in the barrios. Police always speed up here. The barrios are controlled by combat brigades, the so-called colectivos, biker gangs armed no worse than the army. Many of them cover their faces. Understandably, they don't much like the cameras. How the colectivos make their living is rather obvious. Here we see the members of one of the gangs come for their cut from one of the street vendors, gun in hand. The authorities turn a blind eye, and in return the colectivos help them keep the barrios under control.
I don't want to see anyone in the street, understand? Tell everyone. I see any protesting here, and you're getting in trouble. Got it?
Any protesters here are swiftly dealt with. Here the guys from the colectivos approach the opposition protesters. One of them gets off the bike and brandishes his gun. We've blurred it for YouTube. Another biker circling around, gun at the ready. In the barrios of Caracas, among the colectivos, may be hiding hundreds of the world's most wanted and most dangerous criminals. In the spring of 2021, for example, the most wanted drug lord in Colombia, Jesus Santrich, was shot here. The USA had promised $10 million award for his capture. This is the photo of Santrich in the barrios of Caracas. He's in white. Next to him are his collectivo bodyguards. Journalist investigation showed that these bodyguards came from the La Piedrita collectivo, led by Valentin Santana. The La Piedrita are in the top 3 most dangerous collectivos in Caracas, alongside the Tupamaro and the Carapaica, each with more than 2,000 fighters according to the media. They're armed with American AR-15s, Russian AKs, and assorted handguns. Their leader, Valentin Santana, though prefers the Uzi. Here we see him carrying it. He's been charged with armed robbery, murder, kidnapping, and extortion. Chavez himself tried to crack down on La Piedrita and had Santana detained.
We have a group. It's called La Piedrita. They say terrible things. They say that if they don't like somebody or if somebody stands in their way, that they'll kill them. Very strange to me. Very strange that Santana is still at large. The man should be detained because no one can threaten others with death. No one can threaten anyone here with death.
But Valentin never even thought of hiding or lying low.
I'm walking with my face open.
What's more, he later supported both Chavez and his successor Maduro, which made life easier for him. However, what really made his life easier was the armored truck which Valentin Santana suggested for us as a meeting place. So today we'll be walking through the barrios guided by one of their most respected, shall we say, inhabitants.
Come on, lad.
Let's talk a bit about why we're here in the first place. When 6 months ago, Venezuelan opposition leader, the president of the National Assembly, Juan Guaido, proclaimed himself acting president in place of Maduro, we requested interviews from both of them, but neither responded. February to March, there were terrible clashes between the government and the opposition, but then it settled down a bit. So in early September, we were contacted by Maduro staff saying that the president was now willing to give an interview. No idea why, to be honest, but when we flew halfway across the globe, in my case as it was, from Vladivostok to Moscow, then to Istanbul, and finally to Caracas, the very same staff told us mañana, literally translated, means tomorrow, but in reality, it can even mean never at all. We've been waiting here for 10 days now, and still no interview. What was going on during this wait is a whole saga of its own. We were regularly contacted by various members of the president's team, who kept promising us that the interview would happen mañana. Well, this is Spanish for tomorrow, and it can mean almost anything, it turns out.
You'll have to wait.
Okay, so how many more days will we have to wait for this interview already?
Hold, please. Okay, so as I've said, you'll have to wait till tomorrow, okay? We'll call you. That's all I can say. Bye.
Bye, thank you. This is effing unbelievable. We've been here a whole week. I'm flipping, sweating from this. This is just fucking bullshit. We arrived at their invitation on Monday. It's Friday. Every day we're listening to this goddamn mañana. The interview will be tomorrow. And then again the interview will be tomorrow. Yesterday they told us it was going to be today. Yeah, like hell it was. And now, well, we'll call you. Fucking bullshit this is. For several years now, Venezuela has been in a presidential crisis. On the one hand, there's Nicolas Maduro, president since the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013. On the other, there's Juan Guaido, who proclaimed himself acting president in 2019. He's been called the Obama of Latin America. They do look a bit alike. The U.S. immediately recognized him as a legitimate president. Latin America, apart from Bolivia, followed suit. So did the EU. Moreover, the U.S. also granted Guaido access to billions of dollars of Venezuelan foreign assets. He was, after all, in their view, the legitimate president. The UK also gave him all the gold Maduro had moved to London. As for Maduro, he was still recognized by Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, and after some rethinking, the EU, though not before Britain, which to this day sides with Guaido, deciding to leave the bloc. As a result, Guaido has, by some estimations, as much as $30 billion worth of assets outside the country. In Venezuela itself, though, his accounts are frozen. So, not too much play for him there. Guaido himself has several times been on the verge of jail. In the summer of 2021, for example, when the special forces ambushed him at a car park, they almost had him, but it became way too messy. So 2 hours later, he was already given an interview to the press.
This is pure dictatorship. It's absolutely obvious who's behind this attempted arrest.
Just to recap, the opposition leader in one of the most dangerous countries on earth a few years back proclaimed himself president, received the country's foreign assets, and calls for overthrowing the government. And with all that, he is alive, not in jail, lives in his flat in the center of Caracas, talks freely to the press, and organizes protests from time to time. Curious thing, this Venezuelan dictatorship, isn't it? The country as a whole, meanwhile, deprived of all of its foreign assets, received instead a goodly amount of U.S. sanctions. So consider this. To get the necessary drugs, the COVID vaccines, for example, Venezuela needs dollars. To get the dollars it needs to sell some of its oil. But under the sanctions, nobody would trade with it. And even if they went against the sanctions and bought it, the dollars would be immediately frozen by the U.S. banks. The sad upshot of all of this is that Venezuela is running out of drugs, and food, and much, much more. The underground in Caracas has recently been made free, simply because there is no paper for the tickets. There is simply nothing to print them on. The escalators don't work, not only in the underground, but all over the country. It's almost like these escalators are just here as props. None of them work. The underground in Caracas is fairly new, though. The trains are really modern, even the AC's working. They are quiet both in terms of noise and in terms of people. This isn't surprising. The French built the system and the trains. Paris famously has one of the most advanced underground systems in the world. There's even a line with a driverless set of trains. But in the last year, Caracas Underground has become a mess. More than half of the trains are out of order. The intervals are terrible, and at weekends, stations are closed altogether. Filth, stench, and of course crime are everywhere. Do you hear this siren? We meant to wait for it to end so we could film in silence, but it was going on for more than 20 minutes, and there was no end to it. Some shops nearby were being robbed. People are calmly walking by. It's like, whatever. This ATM's obviously out of order. Almost all of them are. Again, it's because there's no paper to print on. And most foreign credit cards won't work anyways because of the sanctions. The shortages are everywhere. We're overtaking a car on the road and look at the wheels. There's simply no rubber for him to buy. And this, believe it or not, is an ambulance.
This is in Maracaibo. This is how they transport patients because there are no other cars.
So they just get a pickup truck, put a bed on it, and there goes the patient, and a guy holding an umbrella to give at least some shade for him. Here's a pharmacy. The shelves are almost empty. We can see that there's hardly anything, just some detergents. Of the medicines on the shelves, almost all are just alcohol-based liquids for disinfecting wounds. There's solitary bottles of water on the counters, and some juice. Look, the shampoos are spread out so that they will cover the shelf at least a bit. Right here in the presidential palace, right here where we are now, there's a separate room where they have strategic stockpiles of medicines for 3 or 4 months. People come here and they're given these medicines free of charge because they would never be able to find them in the pharmacies. You heard that right. A strategic stockpile of medicines is kept on hand close by President Maduro, and his team dispenses them to whomever he sees fit. Imagine queuing for drugs at the Kremlin, or at the White House in Washington, D.C., or queuing at Buckingham Palace for Her Majesty's antibiotics. This is madness.
Look, senor, I need medication. I've been waiting for 6 months to get it, but they won't give it to me. It's been 3 months since I gave all the paperwork for the medication, but it is still not coming.
And now, my friends, some real stuff, really brutal stuff about these sanctions. When the U.S. froze Venezuela's money, they were of course trying to punish Maduro, the evil regime, and so on. But look who is really being punished in Venezuela. This little girl is a few months old. She needs vitamins for her heart to live, but no vitamins can be brought into the country at all.
We've been recently to the cardiologist, and he tells us that we still have some time, about a year, while her heart is still going to work.
This girl has a broken leg, and she needs an operation, but they can't do the operation because all the necessary equipment is embargoed.
We need medication as soon as possible so she can recover quickly. She's a very complicated case. Go on, smile for me, smile.
That little girl is 2 years old. Sanctions. There we are. So, we were promised an interview with the president on Monday, but it was the usual Latin American mañana. And then we finally got the call that they were expecting us and would be taking us somewhere. Finally! Our ride is the lieutenant of the Presidential Security Service. Here's his official limousine, a rundown Chinese Cherry. When you try to open the back window, it just drones pitifully. Again, this is the car of one of the president's security service. How much do you think this soldier with his guns and quite a few soldiers at his command makes? Well, his salary is $6 a month. Yep, that's what salaries are like here. We'll talk about that later. There's a second set of numbers under the seat. I tried to find out what it's for, but the officer doesn't budge. I've been told these are used for robberies, but I have no proof, and I don't want to accuse anyone of anything. We're on the way to our presidential appointment, but the officer driving us offered to make a stop and have some juice, okay?
Let me get it. My treat.
It's called tisana. You're supposed to both drink and eat it. A cup like this costs about 50 cents, by the way, so this treat costs a guy around 1/6 of his salary, at least his official salary. So here we are at the presidential palace of Nicolas Maduro. To get in, you need a guest badge. This badge allows you to walk around, but not everywhere, obviously. We spent around half the day touring the palace. They were showing us around the place. We saw, for example, those large medicine stockpiles. Look, someone managed to get some nappies from the palace stocks. Judging by the red shirts worn by the revolutionaries, there was a bit of nepotism involved. These are letters people sent to Maduro.
They're wishing him good health and many years of life.
This is the government situation center of sorts, where they process complaints from all over the country.
Here we have all the problems listed and how many were solved.
However, the numbers don't appear on this screen automatically. They are entered manually. Big data, Venezuela style. As interesting as this may be, we came here for an interview. So it transpired that they, in fact, brought us to a pro-Maduro rally. The Venezuelan president enters like a real showbiz star, in a sports jacket singing. He can work the crowd for hours. Close by, you'll always find these guys with black briefcases. They are, in fact, armored plates. There have been many assassination attempts on Maduro. One time they used a kamikaze drone to target him during one of his rallies. The president was quickly covered with the same briefcases. Most of the guys in his protection detail are Cubans, by the way. Venezuelans are less trustworthy, easier to sway for the opposition. The latest attempt, the one in 2020, was planned by US mercenaries. They talked about it themselves. Today is the 3rd of May 2020. I'm Javier Nieto Quintero, and this is Jordan Guardreau. The speaker is a former Venezuelan Special Forces guy. The guy next to him is the owner of a private U.S. security company called Silvercore. At 5 today, we launched our bold and ambitious raid from Colombia's coast into the very heart of Caracas. Our people are fighting at this very moment. The plan was bold: to quickly cross the sea border to northwest Venezuela and then use high-speed boats to reach the coast near the capital. Then, by way of mountain paths, get into Caracas, burst into the presidential Miraflores Palace, and seize Maduro. The whole operation was named Operation Gideon, and it failed spectacularly. The whole group was detained, including 2 U.S. citizens. This is their photo en route to Caracas, their last pre-jail photo. National networks had a field day showing their IDs and their written confessions. And also this contract, claimed to be between Jordan Guardreau and one Juan Guaido. Guaido himself vehemently denied ever signing any such contract. Guardreau, though, after his operation failed, spilled all the beans.
So at this point, because the contract's been completely fractured and nothing's been upheld on the side of the opposition, absolutely, so I can say that there's really no contract.
So you're saying there was a contract? Both, please.
Absolutely. I've done everything that we agreed on in the contract. I've done everything. Let me see. Can you read this? English version or Spanish version? Both, please. You can clearly see that this is the same document that they were showing in Venezuela. Keep in mind that I haven't yet made a cent out of this. Not me, not my team, not a cent. U.S. officials continue to deny that they've had any connection to the assassination attempt.
There's a lot of buzz about toilet paper in Venezuela. Look, there's whole shelves of it. Not at all in short supply. But the price is a staggering $3 to $4 a pack. So $1 per roll. And that's when more than 50% of Venezuelans live on minimum wage. This man's protesting against the fact that 30 million Venezuelans live on $1.6 a month. He's being a bit too grim. In 2021, it was actually about $2.5. Monthly wages here look something like this. A junior civil servant makes up to $10 a month. A nurse, about $5. A physician in a public hospital, up to $25 a month. About the same as a school teacher. A salesperson earns much better money because they work for the private sector. Very well off, by these standards, are university professors who earn up to $100. Meanwhile, the prices here are up to 2 to 3 times higher than in Moscow. For example, 1 pound of potatoes costs $1.5. A pound of apples about $5. And these dollar prices are exactly how people are currently paying for groceries, despite the fact that it's strictly speaking illegal. Look, this is the alcohol section. No price tags here. It's because the drinks are foreign goods, so they're valued in dollars or euros. And as the rates change all the time, they decide not to bother putting up price tags, which would have had to have been changed every day anyways. So you just grab the bottle and ask how much it is at the checkout. Look here too, you can see there used to be a price tag here, but now there isn't because this is a foreign good from Italy, so it's in euros, and the prices change all the time. At the checkout, curiously enough, they're asking for passport numbers, but you can just say any 7 digits because they don't really care. Foreign currency payments in the shops are a total mess. We want to pay for our food, so we give the girl $11, but then she counts the sum again. No idea why, but then she always makes the conversation twice, and for some reason, it's always different. So it appears we are a few cents short. Okay then, I give her an extra $1 and tell her to keep the change. But look at what she does. She gives the $1 back. And then when she can't find the money on her, she borrows a few bolivars from a colleague to make up for our deficit. Damn, the girl passed up a whole $1. Maybe as much as a week's worth of pay, and paid for us. But this is Venezuela for you. They'll rob you blind and then turn the corner and give it all to a stranger in need. By the way, the only place in Venezuela where they refused our American dollars is, funnily enough, at the American McDonald's. Do you take dollars? No. Besides, here it's not fast food at all. There's just one guy in the kitchen and nothing's pre-cooked, so you sometimes have to wait 15 to 20 minutes for your meal. This definitely doesn't look like a normal McDonald's. Look, this is supposed to be a Big Mac. But visibly, it's 2 times smaller than usual. Seems like it does have some sort of meat inside it, but it's like, paper thin. And this is something over here, like a 1/4 pounder with cheese. But inside, there's only a piece of meat and some onion. I think I finally have it, yeah. What this taste reminds me of, it's an old traditional Soviet narezhnoy white bread. Instead of French fries, there's fried sweet potatoes, like everywhere else in Latin America. If you spend any time here at all, it becomes apparent that most people don't come here to eat. This couple sat here for half an hour without ordering anything. The place is full, but look, there's no food on the tables. They didn't come here to eat, they came to play at the free playground, because it's safe here. Signs like these say no arms allowed inside, and they're seen in many places here, in restaurants and in malls, but no one pays too much attention to them. Venezuela has a different kind of fast food. These are the most popular flatbreads in the country. This is real Venezuelan cuisine. It's called arepa. There's meat and avocado, and it's all rolled inside a flatbread. It is quite tasty. The flatbreads are made of cornmeal. They say that these are the traditional fried banana they eat in place of potatoes, and are the main reasons Venezuelan women get so wonderfully curvy. Venezuela is a world leader when it comes to the most Miss World wins. They have the most wins in history. Venezuelan women are considered the most beautiful, and not only from the front, but also from the rear. This profile of butt curve is so distinctly Venezuelan. It's said that the fashion for big butts originated in Venezuela. It was then popularized first by Jennifer Lopez, then by Kim Kardashian. But butt implants can't move like that. As you know, there are 3 things you can watch forever: fire, water, and the slow-mo of a Venezuelan girl's swaying buttocks. With the prices constantly changing, restaurants now have these beautiful special menus. Instead of prices, there are item codes here. Added to it is a simple, freshly printed sheet with this day's pricing. Easy to see the price tag's been reapplied over and over the previous one. It used to be a different price, but then the price changed, and they simply put another sticker right on top of it. Venezuela has had 6,000% inflation. The value of the national currency is not simply falling, it's crashing. What it means in practice is that in 2012, $1 was equivalent to 2 Bolivar banknotes. In 2019, $1 was valued at 20,000 Bolivar, 10,000 times more. After that, these banknotes were recalled and the currency was redenominated, so the dollar was again worth 2 bolivars. But these were the new bolivars. However, by the end of the year, the currency had again fallen to the rate of 20,000 bolivars per dollar. But this 20,000 bolivar banknote actually represents 2 million in old bolivar, so the currency fell by a factor of 2 million. But even then, that's not the end of it. In a year, the dollar was worth more than 4.5 million bolivar, which translates to 45 billion in the old currency. In other words, in 1 decade, the Venezuelan currency has collapsed by a factor of 22 billion. Imagine that, simply staggering. By the way, the government's recently removed the zeros at the end yet again. In an effort to try to hold down the exchange rate, the government restricted, or rather almost completely banned, the sale of foreign currency. Now it can only be bought on the street from guys like this. Now, what are you guys doing here? You're trading currencies, aren't you?
No, man.
18 months ago, you could have faced jail time for something like this, and you still can, but they mostly let it slide now. It's common knowledge that petrol in Venezuela is practically free. This is how much they charge for 95. So, 1 US gallon costs about 8 cents. Some people, if there's no petrol man around, when they fill up, just throw the money in here. Let's see, 10 bolivars, another tenner, enough to get a full tank. But so little that no one ever steals it. But there are also these signs everywhere. Sale of fuel in jerry cans, bottles, etc. is prohibited. The problem's quite simple. There's a lot of petrol in Caracas, and it's very cheap. But outside Caracas, there's practically no petrol at all. A gallon costs about $4, and that's if you can get it, which isn't easy at all. In short, petrol's dirt cheap in Caracas, but outside the capital, there's almost none of it. And even in Caracas, it's now just your first 40 gallons this month that cost 8 cents each. Beyond that, the gallon's $2. The queues for fuel are not hours long, but they are days long. These people even came here with their own bedding. Many of them sleep in the shade by their cars.
We've been here since 4 a.m. and now it's 10. I've been here 6 hours now. And still no progress? No, none. What progress? Nobody's getting filled up.
This is a bus queue, and it's just getting bigger by the moment. It's going to be several blocks long. And it's because there's practically no buses left. They're now in short supply. You won't find any available bus routes on this stop. The routes change all the time. You have to ask this guy. He's in charge here because on his slip of paper, he has the latest timetable. He's also the one who usually collects the fares. Many drivers and conductors these days refuse to carry any money on board. Small wonder. This is what a typical city bus looks like. Very old, of course. Looks a bit like our Paz buses. No AC inside, so it's boiling hot here. Especially considering they cram the place to the brim. The fare in Caracas is 800 bolivars, or about 4 cents. Even that's not the worst option. Here's a Venezuelan-style minibus, an old pickup truck loaded with as many people as it can possibly carry. Hopefully it gets you there in the end, but at least it's 3 times cheaper, so everyone's happy. The guys in this dump truck are packed in like sardines. These people trucks unload their cargo at bus stops. I kept expecting to see the back end lift up and dump people like sand, but no, that didn't happen. Still, even these trucks are beyond some people's means, so many just have no choice but to walk. It's awful, just awful. Our entire oil infrastructure is ruined. Our oil refining is ruined. We had the biggest refinery in the world. It used to serve all our needs. It's come to the point where the world's richest oil country has started to import oil from Iran. These are the employees of the local oil company cheering the first arriving tanker. And it's not just oil refining that has collapsed. When the country's largest hydroelectric power plant broke down, the government blamed it on U.S. hacking. But is it also hacking that's causing old wiring all over the country to catch fire, wires to spark, power lines to go down, and power stations to go up in flames? Venezuela seems to be slowly falling apart, and it's not because of sanctions, or not just because of them. In the past 20 years, the government has done little or nothing to upgrade the infrastructure, and so that infrastructure is now starting to die out. Here I have some candles, just in case. You never know, because candles are always necessary. How often do you use them? So when there's a blackout, 30, 40 minutes, an hour, it's no big deal. No one's affected too much. But over the last 2 or 3 months, there have been several blackouts lasting from 4 to 5 hours, some up to even 2 days. Vladimir Stolyarov has been living in Venezuela for almost 30 years, helping Russian companies do business here. It may seem strange, but even though they've invested less here, Belarusians are better loved. This is because they worked in the social sector, building housing. I was showing you before the district where they built almost 5,000 flats. They also built a school here which was named the Anton Makarenko School in Gratitude. And Venezuelans say, yes, we studied at the school that the Belarusians built for us. Now these notices are seen in many places. Ladies and gentlemen, water is available only when there is power. So no water during blackouts. If anything does come out of the tap, it's just a small trickle. Because there's no water, there are actual water trucks going around the city. Trucks like these that pump water into houses. But that's just for the rich. Most people get their water from ditches or straight out of the drain pipe by the roadside. They're saying it's because there's no power. But how can there be no power in a country with the world's largest oil reserves? It's sort of in the same vein as inviting a person to an interview with the president and then just not showing up to it. And this is a garbage truck arriving at the dump. It's immediately swarmed. After all, there might be edible waste in the back. 6 months ago, they would buy up rotten meat at the market and soak it in vinegar or lemon. Now lemons have become a luxury, so they eat rotten meat straight from the bag. At the dumps, there are queues to the rubbish trucks, just in case there's something left that's only half rotten in there. Grapes, potatoes. This girl got lucky. Someone threw a half-full packet of crisps. Lucky indeed.
I want to get a job, but there aren't any jobs. I don't like it here. It's bad and scary, but at least there is food.
They'll still be looking for food come nightfall. But the bolivars, look, the bolivars are worthless here. They're literally chicken feed. This is a private club in the very heart of Caracas. It has a gorgeous view of the city. It was founded by Catalans back in '45. It's now quite hard to get in. Even if you pay a lot of money, you might not be allowed to join. Because it's such an elite establishment. So let's see how even the elite are living now. The toilet paper's only at the entrance. Now let's see what's inside. Running water? No running water. So of course, there's no water in the toilets either. I'm not going to show you what's in there, but believe me, it's not too pleasant. Guys, just so you understand how bad it's become, we're in the bathroom of the presidential palace right now. See? This is the pass to the presidential palace. Looks like this. And there's no toilet paper here. Even here in the presidential palace. This, by the way, was when we were again invited to the palace for the interview. They said that this time it would happen for sure. So I put on a suit. But in the office, only Maduro's aide was waiting for us. Hi, how you doing? Fine, thanks. Oh, you speak Spanish? Nice. The aide told us that the interview would have to be postponed again. How's that possible? Why don't you bring your wife? She'll enjoy it here. Tomorrow it's definitely going to happen. Yes, but you told me yesterday. I know, I get you, but how the hell is this even possible? They didn't know. They invited us to the interview, took us to the palace, and then tell us that the president's out of town. Unfrickin' believable. When is the interview going to happen? I have no idea. We'll call you tomorrow. This endless flip-flopping mañana. Just unbelievable levels of incompetence. This is the Bolivar room in the presidential palace. Very beautiful, very luxurious. This was supposed to be Nicolas Maduro's chair, and that's mine next to it. But the interview never took place. They've brought us here to have a look around the palace. Why though? Why are we looking at a room where the interview once again didn't happen? Well, at least we saw the large collection of gifts received by the president. This was the sword that Nicolas Maduro received from Vladimir Putin, and a whole gallery of portraits of Hugo Chavez. Chavez lived, Chavez lives, Chavez will live. But mostly we saw lots and lots of grand rooms. How about this crystal chandelier on this gold ceiling, for example? This is a typical flat here in the barrios. This is where the children live. This is where they play. This is the cooking area. Let's see what's in the fridge. The fridge is predictably empty. Well, half empty anyways. The only light in the kitchen is this lamp. And this light is the only one in the whole flat. The chandelier looks like this because light bulbs are impossible to get.
I got some corn grits, rice, and pasta here.
Lucia Lopez is showing the supplies she has for the week.
There's not much protein in these, true.
And now let's count the children living here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th one carrying out the frame. The dog barking in the downstairs neighbors, and above them, an aluminum roof that other people live on, an entire whole other family. One curious detail, you'll never see any wardrobes in these flats. The clothes are laid out or hung all around the flat and outside the windows. Outside, boys are eating ice cream. Look, it's in plastic bags. It's made with the simplest ingredients. Water poured into the plastic bag with milk powder, cocoa, and sugar, and a couple hours in the freezer. No one here has any money for a proper ice cream, of course. And the biscuits in the boys' laps are just corn flour with cocoa and sugar, not even baked. But this could as well be all they have for lunch. By now, you may be thinking that life in the slums is the rock bottom, but it's not. People move to the barrios for a better life, because the villages they were born in look like this. Houses made of hay and clay, no light at all, and bananas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. State price regulation has ruined agriculture. In the country where you can collect 3 harvests a year, now there's famine. At least in the barrios there is light, even if not always, some sanitation and water, schools for the children, and most importantly, food. Hugo Chavez started handing out food parcels and introduced free lunches. This is the kind of meal that every barrio resident in Caracas can get for free. It is in fact one of the only ways people survive here. Today there's pasta, some mushy beans, and a slightly suspicious-looking chicken. Still, it's actually not that bad. But today, even these public canteens are slowly running out of food. Valentin Santana's taking us to the Holy of Holies in the barrio, the Colectivo's command center.
Look, this is our base of operations. From here, we control the whole territory. See those cameras? The whole barrio's covered by these cameras. So you control the whole barrio from here? The whole barrio and beyond. We also monitor the surrounding area.
Here they have gas masks, military helmets, and of course, piles of guns.
Hey, don't film that. Turn that off.
Before we arrived, the men had clearly been told to put away their guns. But look, they didn't bother to take off the clip holsters, for example. And now Santana's taking us into his own private premises. Look at the view from his house in the barrio. He has a greenhouse with vegetables, his own pigsty and chicken coop, and even a live crocodile. You may be surprised to learn that the people in the slums almost worship the fighters of the colectivos. They're not just shooting here. They've taken up all the responsibilities of the government. They're also treating people, especially now when there's a pandemic and nobody has any money or medicines. We're entering the hospital run by Santana and his men.
This is a hospital for the locals. It has everything they need, free of charge.
And now one of the men is taking us to a small house. This boy's named Juan Carlos. Next to him is his aunt. Every barrio has a house like this, and more than just one. It is essentially a guest house with all the amenities. There's a washing machine here, and here's the kitchen. It's currently the home of Juan Carlos. These houses are for people who come to Caracas because in their hometowns there's no medicine or food or doctors, so they need to stay here in Caracas. Juan came from his village to see a doctor. He had recently fallen and broken his arm, but that's hardly the worst of it. Juan has brain cancer. Yesterday he saw the doctor.
They can't do the operation because they don't have the, what's the right word?
They don't have a needle. That's right, they don't have a needle to make the post-operation stitches. We don't have time. If they can't do my operation here, we'll have to find the needles ourselves. Yesterday we saw the doctor, and he asked for a needle to do the operation. But then he said he couldn't help me anyway, because after the operation, you need to put ice on the stitches. But they don't have any. It was very hot in the hospital. I stayed there at night, but no one could sleep because it was so hot. My blanket got sticky and gross. I really don't know how this boy has the strength to tell us all that and then smile again. He only came close to tears once, when he talked about his murdered father and his granny waiting for him at home. They're staying in these houses free of charge. The members of the colectivos help them with food and with transport, with everything they need. So when you next hear about how it's dangerous in the barrios, well, think about that. This isn't meant to justify the robberies and murders committed by the colectivos. It's just that life is more complicated than just black and white. For example, the leader of the Tupamaro collective, Alberto Carillas, was one of the most zealous fighters against the drug mafia in Venezuela. In his own way, of course.
Если кто-то продает наркотики, у него нет никаких прав. Если кто-то продает наркотики и разрушает жизни детей, стариков, молодежи, у него нет права на жизнь.
So what do you make of the colectivos? Good or bad? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This is the richest neighborhood of Caracas. Houses here start at $1 million. This house here might be worth $15 million. Fences here used to be much shorter, but now there's not just these huge metal fences, but there's also electric fences above them. This guy built a 6-foot wall, but then the border's clearly visible. He thought a bit and added another 6 feet on top of that. Construction here is in full swing. Here they're building a house that looks like it's going to cost a few $1,000,000. These elite construction sites in a starving country look especially striking next to a shabby old taxi someone had left nearby.
I remember the new Russians? Well, here there's Bolivarian revolutionaries. It's they who are building here because their income is mind-blowing, really mind-blowing. It's common knowledge that $10 to $15 million is entry-level income for government figures, for these Bolivarian officials. The biggest, shall we say, big shots here have recently pivoted towards the food business.
So what are the bribes like here? For example, what would be the bribe for speeding, like $1 or something?
$1, maybe $2, yeah. No wait for speeding? No such thing here, really. Most likely you'll get stopped if you're driving and talking on the phone. It got me once like that.
So how much did you give?
Nah, we just went to the cafe there and I got them 2 or 3 bottles of Coca-Cola.
Wait, soda for bribes, really?
Yeah, I also got them some sweet buns or something like that.
So you can drink and drive?
No, drunk driving's not on. But, I've lived here for 24 years. It depends, if you're drunk here, if you're completely out, then yeah, you'll open the door and fall out.
Have you seen this list floating around the internet of how much in bribes they charge for all sorts of things? Here, for example, for some blue passport. What's this blue passport? $4,500?
Here it is, the blue Venezuelan passport. The problem is that $5,000 is the minimum. It's now $5,000 at the minimum, yes, and it takes about a month. If I want to renew my passport, it's just $1,000. Is this the official fee? This is the official bribe. No fees. The passport's free.
It's the 4th time we're in the presidential palace. Yeah, you don't have to say it. Once more, we've been brought to the interview room. I've been waiting for almost an hour. They're bringing in some sort of table. Look how many people have gathered behind the cameras. And finally, Maduro appears. Buenos dias. Shall we begin? And so we began. Mr. President, we've been here for 2 weeks now. Could you tell us, how are you planning to solve the hunger situation in Venezuela? Just to give you an idea of where these questions might lead, shortly before us, Maduro was interviewed by Mexican presenter Jorge Ramos.
Before the interview, I also filmed the poverty in Caracas. People eating scraps out of dumpsters. There's hunger in the country. We don't have other food. I'd like to discuss with you the crisis engulfing the country. Senor Maduro, people are eating out of dumpsters. I've seen it myself. Yes, but such things happen everywhere. I've seen it in Miami. Look at this video. I don't think this interview is going to be productive. Not for you, and not for me. I think we should just end this now.
But this is only the beginning of the story.
Then the Minister for Communication, Jorge Rodriguez, appeared. He said this wasn't the interview we had agreed on.
All the video footage was confiscated by Maduro's people, who also took the cameras and other equipment. They confiscated everything we had and divided our crew. I was locked up in the presidential palace.
I asked whether we were under arrest. We're journalists. We were just doing our job. They told me we had showed disrespect.
A group of agents came in and took away all my things, including my phone.
They called some woman to search me to make sure I didn't have anything hidden well, you know. The woman patted my breast and put her hand inside my pants. I wasn't actually scared, you know. I was furious.
The journalist stayed locked up inside the palace for almost a day.
Urgent news. At this very moment, a group of our channel's journalists, headed by our presenter, Jorge Ramos, is most likely held against their will in the Venezuelan presidential palace.
The journalists were released in the morning. They were put in cars straight to the airport and out of the country. Only much later, Jorge Ramos managed to get his footage back, and only because he had friends in Maduro's team. So here we are, several days later, asking the very same question. Mr. President, we've been here for 2 weeks now. Could you please tell us how are you planning to solve the hunger situation in Venezuela?
In Venezuela, we're tirelessly fighting against the injustice brought against us, fighting against poverty, and we're starting to win this fight. In spite of the economic pressure put on us, the blockade we're finding ourselves in, we're maintaining a level of social protection. We have a program, a unique program. We're distributing free food to 6 million families, and we have a new food program. We've started distributing animal protein in addition to the existing food parcels.
But how can you survive here when a pound of potatoes costs about $1 and the average salary is about $10 a month?
As I've told you, we have an unemployment protection program, an income protection program, and a program that feeds 6 million families.
Well, I think you get the picture. There are no problems in Venezuela. Surprisingly, we were allowed to leave Maduro's palace freely. Evidently, this is a friendly gesture towards Big Russia. So here then is the key question. Russia, who has so often supported Venezuela, is it doomed to repeat its fate? Russia and Venezuela are often lumped together, and indeed there are many similarities between our two countries. Venezuela is an oil-rich country, and so is Russia. Venezuela has had just 2 presidents in the last 20 years, and so has Russia. Venezuela is not on good terms with the United States. Russia's not doing too great in that department either. So then, maybe Russia too is heading towards a famine. From here on, it's just my opinion, I think there's one major difference between Russia and Venezuela, and it's this. Whose house is this? Expropriated. Whose shop is that over there? Expropriated. This is Hugo Chavez solving the country's economic woes. The shop's raising prices, shop expropriated. The flats cost too much, house expropriated. A farmer's not bringing pork to the market, farm expropriated. In the end, everything is expropriated. Great job. People cheering. But in the long run, the prices stayed the same. It's just that the country where it's summer all year round is somehow now starving. This building here is a hotel you bring your girls to. It's called Aladdin. Owned by the Arabs, by the way. The Arabs, really? Really? They have a whole network of these hotels in every city. It's highly inadvisable to go out on the streets of Caracas at night, especially as I'm doing right now with my phone in my hand. They can snatch it, and that's the best case scenario. They can shoot you and take it right off your body. So it's possible that if you're watching this video, it's been edited by my cameraman post factum. Old jeans, t-shirts, slippers. This is the black market in the slums of Caracas. Anything goes here. For example, this guy's selling stolen phones. You can get anything here, from furniture and clothes to guns and drugs. Not a night goes by in the barrios without some sort of shooting. These guys cover their faces, asking not to give their names. They are human traffickers. Here's where we keep the kidnapped. These kidnappers are also fleeing the crisis. Look what one of them's armed with. Just a simple pipe. You disassemble it like this, then load it with an incendiary rocket or just a firework, and then fire. This gun today costs here $1,500. And a year ago, I got it for $600. Everything's getting more expensive, so we have to ask for more ransom. 2 years ago, it was $10,000 a person. Now it's $20,000. At night, the barrios come alive. People come back from work, many go to bars, and many play dominoes. like this. For a foreigner, it's really quite dangerous here at this time, so don't try this for yourself. Although, if you know your way around the dominoes, you might just pass for one of the locals. Dominoes are the main source of entertainment in Venezuela, but this guy is just taking out a really cool thing. It's a local cactus vodka called Cocuy. It's sold on tap, and it's a silent killer. That's right, it's Cocuy. It's a purely Venezuelan drink made from green agave plants. It's very similar to tequila. That's why it's sometimes called the Venezuelan tequila. But believe me, this is much, much better, and it's almost impossible to find outside of Venezuela. Seriously, guys, Venezuela is rich not only in oil, but there's lots to see here. The world's tallest waterfall, Angel Falls, almost 3,000 feet of falling water dropping over a majestic plateau. Explored by very few feet due simply to its inhospitable location. The beaches are smooth and sandy with transitions between the islands. The best ever fishing is on the Orinoco River next to sand dunes. The best street art in the world, believe you me, is here, especially in the barrios. Here you'll find the AK-wielding Jesus we've already shown and the abstract art of this type. These streets are made for walking. With a camera, you can spend the whole day here and not notice. Venezuelan rap needs an episode all of its own. There's so many incredibly talented guys here. I'll leave some links in the description. Just have a listen. As a bit of a joke, I'll leave you with a real Venezuelan gangsta. Enjoy.
Fin de semana y esto aquí se pone mal, pero ¿qué vamos a hacer?